Before we get into today's video topic, let's go over real quick what the portfolio is looking like. We're sitting in at $3,795.42. We got a little bit of gains going on now from the last time. Let's look at some of the positions we took. I deposited $500, it looks like. And I bought some more MasterCard, bought some more the Schwab US large cap growth ETF, and increased my position in Vici a little bit. If we look at the dividend tab, we are sitting in at an estimate income of $43.41, with Vici being our biggest estimate annual winner, and then MasterCard right after. So as you can see, our yields aren't that high, right? So MasterCard's yield is 0.6, Visa's is a little higher, sitting at 7.9, and Schwab sitting at 0.4, Canadian Pacific sitting at 0.65, and Vici sitting at 5.65, which is pretty good. But yeah, we're sitting in at $43, and that'll just keep increasing the more we add. With our weekly contributions, that number's got to keep going up. So I think that's something I'm going to start including in the videos, kind of looking at the dividend tab. But yeah, that's what the portfolio is looking like. Today I want to talk about a skill that I think is really important to have if you want to play this game of wealth building, and that's saving money. I think saving money is single-handedly one of the most important things you can do, and it's a everyone thing. It's whether you make a lot of money, whether you don't make a lot of money. It doesn't matter how much money you make. You can save. Anybody can save. And so it's not exclusive to a certain income, whether you make $40,000 a year, 50, 60, 70, 100, 120, etc. You all have the ability to save money. And this article right here by CNBC talks about 44% of Americans can't pay an unexpected expense from savings. And apparently, according to this article, that's gone up 1% since last year. So it's heartbreaking to know that most people cannot afford to pay $1,000 emergency. And that's pretty much highlighting the topic of today's video of what can we do, what should you do, and what's going to get you ahead of the curve that just most people are not doing. And I think the very first step and most important step is to know what comes in and what goes out. If you don't know how much you make a month, you're already not doing this right. You're already behind. And that's horrible because you don't know if you're actually making money that month or if you're losing money that month. And honestly, it's not the hardest thing to find that out. There's some pretty cheap ways, even if you're a little bit lazy like I am. And you can add this to a budget. But you can get a budgeting app. I found out that's one of the easiest ways to kind of track my monthly expenses and my income, and it kind of makes me less complacent because I have a lot of credit cards, so I don't have to go through all of them, every statement every month, and out of the math. It does it all for me, so it makes it really easy for me. So that would be probably the number one thing I would recommend is get a budgeting app. Plug in all your information, find out what comes in and what goes out every month. Find out where you're spending the most, find out what category you're overspending in. Now, I'm not going to tell you about what kind of ratios to go with. Once you do get a budgeting app and start a budget, you can kind of find that. I know the Money Guys have a pretty good one. I think it's like a 50, 20, 30. It's like 50% needs, 20% savings, and 30% wants, or it's the opposite, 30% savings, 20% wants. I'm not sure. Look it up. Find one that I think fits you. There's a lot of good ratios out there, but I'm pretty sure 50, 20, 30 is one of them. And I think once you get the budgeting app and you figure out what categories you're overspending, I think it's time to do a deep dive analysis. Find out what you need to cut out. And if you're not to the point where you've committed to very expensive payments like car payments, house mortgage payments, um, don't even start. Don't even put yourself in that hole. I know if you're probably watching, there's a good chance you might be in that hole already, where you're paying a crazy amount for a car you can't afford, or a mortgage that's making you live paycheck to paycheck. But take a minute, and kind of really realize if the stuff that you want, if it's gonna fit. And I also don't get kind of why you would want a really I like, because when it comes to the topic of cars, I understand why people want cars, but I mean, it's a lot of times maintenance, gas, and insurance, and the car payment alone that can go up in the $1,000 for a lot of people. So I just don't see why, you know, people go into such debt for such a materialistic thing like a car. I get it. Sometimes you just want to be cool. You want to buy a car, but I mean, it's cool for the first like few months, but after that, who really cares? I mean, you're gonna get some friends dabbing you up for, wow, what a nice car. You got a nice car. And then a few months go by, nobody cares anymore. You're old news, and now you're stuck with a very hefty car payment. Probably another thing that's making you live paycheck to paycheck is those credit cards. Probably a lot of you have some pretty big credit card minimums each month because you've continuously stacked up this hefty bill on your credit card, and all you're doing is paying the monthly. You're already messing up. Let's be honest. A lot of you guys are not gonna want to hear this, but if you have such a big credit card expense to the point where, say, your limit's 5,000 and you're at 4,200, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, you're messing up. If that's you, you're messing up. You need to stop. You need to light a fire under your butt. You need to get yourself in check. Because if you're that close to your credit limit, you're doing it wrong. Your credit card is not your emergency fund. Your credit card is not going to save you. And especially with how high the interest rates are on some of these credit cards, it's not helping you. It's not helping you get any wealthier. If anything, it's probably just as bad as a car loan. That's killing your wealth even faster. If you're really in this game of wealth building, credit cards are killing you. Credit cards are great for people that know how to use them. Like if you're credit card churning, you're paying for stuff that you were already going to buy and then paying that credit card each month. Good. Because you're getting back points, you're getting back money, you're using that money, stacking that money to actually pay for some stuff that you would have gotten, that you wouldn't have if you just paid with a debit. If you're doing that with your credit card, you're doing it right. If you're just adding every month to this credit card, getting closer and closer to that credit limit while paying down only the minimum, you're doing it wrong. In fact, if you're even accruing interest on those credit cards, I still think you're doing it wrong. Now, I know a lot of you people are not going to like what I just said. You're not going to like it. A lot of you think you probably have a income problem. I want you to do a reality check and see if it's really an income problem or if it's a spending problem. Can you not afford rent because you literally took care of your essentials, you're paying every bill that needs to be paid, and you just have no money left over? Or you don't have any money left over because you're paying for a $350 tattoo when just last month you were arguing about not having any money? So I know that's gonna probably get a few people mad, but it's the reality. You most likely do not have an income problem. You have a spending problem because you're living way above the means. You're buying cars you can afford. I know houses, mortgages. I know the market's tough. I know it is. I'm not even gonna blame you. Get roommates. Get creative. Realistically, you have to. We can complain all we want about how high it is, how high the interest rates are, how high it's all going, how inflation is destroying everything. But realistically, that's just the game we're playing. And complaining is just not going to help you. So you just have to play the game. You either get left behind or you sacrifice, do what you have to get ahead. And it's going to take hard work. It's not easy. Nobody said it's ever easy. But you have to get ahead. Because if you don't do it now, your 60-year-old self is really going to wish that you did. It's really going to wish you didn't accrue all this interest. They're going to wish you didn't buy all these houses. They're going to wish you invested. They're going to wish you didn't buy this car that you probably never drove. Said you were going to fix it and you never did. It's just sitting there. When you could have put that money into market savings. And just having a savings account, especially. Once you start that budget, start saving every month and accumulate at least 6 months. I know some people say find 6 months of what your monthly expenses are, your needs, times it by 6, and that's what you should have. That or $10,000, whichever is higher. I think $10,000 is a pretty good amount. I think back then when it was with Dave Ramsey, I think his advice was have $1,000. The truth is, $1,000 now is $10,000. It's hard. It's just got 10 times bigger, and it's not going to get any easier. I'm going to tell you guys that right now. It's not going to get easier. But once you start having that money in your savings account, certain stuff does get easier. While the prices are probably not going to come down, your habits of creating wealth can go up. One thing you can control is how much you're spending. So once you start having that $10,000, I think a shoulder gets lifted, or the world kind of gets lifted from your shoulders. I think you start breathing a lot easier because if something bad were to happen, that you can afford it because you have $10,000 in the bank. Now, I know for a lot of you, probably $10,000 is going to take a few years to accumulate, and probably even at the cost of a couple years or few years of investing. But I really do think that having that $10,000, I think it's really worth it. I think it's really going to help, especially when stuff gets tough and you need money. The last thing you want to do is pull out a loan. And pull out a loan because you don't have money. So you have pets, get pet insurance. Get something that probably doesn't, figure out what you need, cater it to whatever you need, get pet insurance. If you have a dog, cat, whatever you have. But have that $10,000 because when emergencies do come, and they will, stuff will happen in your life that you can't control that. But you can control how much money you have in your bank. And it really is like a big weight lifted. I really do think you start bringing this aura to yourself that once you have money saved in there, it just gets easier. Like I said earlier, I was talking about how it doesn't get easier. I was talking about how the prices of stuff probably will not get any cheaper. But how much wealth you build, it does get easier. Because once you start having that 10,000, you can then start investing. Stash that money into like a high yield savings account. I know Capital One pays like a 4.25. I know there's a few banks that are paying a little bit higher. That's what I use personally, Capital One. And if you ever think that you really need it, or when it comes to buying something, think about, ask yourself this one question. And this is kind of like the question that you should ask before buying anything. Will buying that thing improve your life? If it doesn't, do not buy it. And I'm talking about like actually improve your life. I'm not talking about buying a car and then you're going to get all this attention from people because you have a nice car or you think it's going to make you happy. No. If it's genuinely not going to make your life better, do not do it. It is sacrifice. Um, it takes a lot of sacrifice. It really does, and it sucks. It sucks that it takes sacrifice. But like I said earlier, this is just the world we're in, and there's nothing you can do, right? You can complain about how expensive it is. Does not matter. Help your future self, because if you don't start now, you're gonna regret it when you finally hit retirement age, and you're just stuck in a drowning pool of debt. And the hardest thing about the later you start is that the harder and harder it gets to dig yourself out of that hole. If you start early, digging yourself out of that hole is going to be a whole lot easier when you're $4,000 in debt instead of $40,000 in debt. And when I say that, I'm not really including a house mortgage, because I know house mortgages can extend up to 30 years. And I also believe that buying a house is a pretty good investment, unlike buying a car, which depreciates in value. A house actually increases in value and increases your wealth, and it's somewhere where you can live. So it's providing a house and building your wealth. But when it comes to cars, they're just wealth destroyers. Credit cards are wealth destroyers. When it comes to cars, wealth destroyers. And if it's not bringing money in, all it's doing is, it's just pushing you further back. Two steps back, one step forward. It's just, you're not getting anywhere. So find your budget, find what you need to survive on each month, sacrifice for a few years, build that money up. Sometimes, even if you think $10,000 is a little bit too much, find out what you think you need, but bump it up to like 8 months. If $2,000 or $10,000 is a lot, I know what you might want to do too is kind of split. Say you save like $400 a month. Split that some way. Put maybe $300 into a savings, $100 into your investing. I don't think you completely want to be gone from the investing game while you're trying to save up this money, because you are losing time on compounding. I think compounding interest is really strong. So when you're not invested in the market, you're just kind of losing money realistically. So just find how much you're saving each month. Find your net, and then find a good split. You make you save $500. Maybe put $350, $400, and put the other $150 into your investing. Don't completely leave the investing game either. But don't completely focus, because the last thing you want to do is get yourself into a hole you cannot dig out of. Because it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck, and it's gonna take sacrifice. One last thing that you can do, when it comes to saving money, is and kind of investing too, is investing yourself. Find a career that's gonna pay you really well. I think nowadays there's a lot of jobs that are paying crazy amount of money. I know I had a friend earlier, got a job at Indeed, and now I think he's making over like $30 an hour from Indeed. I think they started at like 26. Now it's not the best job, and it's a little bit hazardous. But he's making over like $30 an hour, and he's living pretty well now. I think he's making pretty good money for his age. So find a job that's going to make you more money, because the more money you make, that's more power. That's more money power in your pocket, and then you can get to these goals that you want in life. You want to be able to buy a house. Good. Now, I'm not completely saying don't buy stuff that you want. I am saying that, but what I'm saying is, if you can afford it, only time you should buy anything is if you can afford it. I know the money guys have pretty good ratios for when it comes to buying cars, buying houses, and saving ratios. Look those up. Go to the Money Guys channel. If those fit within the parameter of how much you're doing, there's nothing wrong with buying that. There's nothing wrong, but it has to fit in your budget, right? So, like I said, I'm not saying completely, remove yourself from all this stuff, but sacrifice a little bit now, for a what I like to think a better tomorrow, a better future. I think your older self is going to thank you. I think many people um, are going to thank you, especially when it comes to if you're very if you're a very kind person and you love helping people out. You can't. I truly believe you cannot help other people out if you first cannot help yourself out. If you can't dig yourself out of a hole, don't even bother trying to help other people dig themselves out because you're just going to make it worse. I'm gonna be honest. You need to dig yourself out first. You have to be a little bit selfish. You need to get yourself out of that hole, and then from there you can help as much as you want. Because there's no point of helping someone that can't get up if you can't stand up either. And maybe that's just my hot take.